I'm Jonathan Mitchell. I am from Orlando, Florida originally, live in Atlanta, Georgia now, and I am the director and co-writer of the film pageant material. Filmmaking is something I always wanted to be involved in. I made my first movie when I was 16 years old, and I just kind of sort of got the bug, and I started writing more and more and like really investing time into reading scripts and figuring out as much as I could about the filmmaking process. Took a small break to work at Disney World in Orlando, and then from there kind of stepped out and went to the University of Florida, where I focused actually in film theory, not filmmaking itself, and thought that wasn't enough and started making my own content in 2010, yeah, and did stuff from there, and I've been doing it ever since. The first time I started really making my own content was in Gainesville, Florida, at the University of Florida. I was working with other students there, and we were making things here and there when we could, and that's where I made my first feature, which never saw the light of day. We were far too ambitious to be making anything like that in college. I mean, it was just a crew of two, so you know, it wasn't the best film that it could be. And then from there, we kind of branched out and we made a web series that was 8 episodes. And I took a break to go to law school and then got back into filmmaking after that, and just kind of been all over the place.
See you at school, Rodney.
All right, Monique, bye.
She know you're queer, right?
Yeah, everybody in Stillwater does run it. Ain't a well-kept secret or anything.
Seeing people's reactions to the content that you create really sort of sets the tone for giving you that idea of like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Seeing people react to this web series that we made with a crew of 2 and a very small cast, and seeing that they liked it, seeing that they related to it, was really phenomenal for me. And I kind of decided then and there that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. From there, we branched out and we made a little thing called Growing Pains. And it was about a openly gay frat brother who tried to sleep with one guy from every fraternity on campus. And he makes it through, I think, almost everyone. You have to watch it and see. But it's all on YouTube. We made it over the course of 6 months, and then we got together just recently, actually a couple years ago, and made an additional episode. That was a lot of fun just to see everybody again. For a long time, I worked with the same people on the projects that I was making. I was working with a close friend of mine named Skylar, who is actually one of the executive producers on my film pageant material. So he's still very much involved in the films that I'm making. In terms of the overall crew, it's sort of dependent on where I'm living at the time. You know, moving out of Gainesville, the crew that I had and the cast that I had, we all kind of went our separate ways. And then when I started making things here in Atlanta, I've gotten an opportunity to work with a lot of really, really incredible people, sometimes only once, sometimes for multiple times, just because Atlanta is the base for so much incredible talent, both in front of and behind the camera. I moved to Atlanta 2 weeks before Snowpocalypse in 2014. I found my job online. I saw a posting for a PA position, and I applied for that. And I originally started with Adult Swim doing quality assurance. I would watch clips on the website and make sure that they worked for viewers at home to be able to watch them. And that slowly morphed as our goals changed within the department. We went from doing just a normal website to creating original live content, and now we create over 40 hours of original content a week. And I'm a production coordinator, and I assist in helping to keep that running, including my own show, which comes on Mondays at 11 called Dear Jono, where I offer advice to Adult Swim viewers. You can call me up live and I will talk to you about something going on in your life. You can share an anecdote or a story. Sometimes I share anecdotes and stories of my own. It is wildly inappropriate, start to finish, but it is a lot of fun. My production company started as a hobby. You know, when I started making films for Problematic Productions, which is my little production outfit, it started as something that I was doing on the side. Adult Swim gives me the opportunity to be able to do that. It affords me the ability to be able to go and make films outside of work. And it gives me a great network to sort of build off of when I am making things on my own time outside of work. I love my job at Adult Swim, and as long as they're going to keep me there, I'm certainly going to stay. And I would love to grow there. but I also would love to continue making things on my own, which includes, you know, sketches or web series or even future feature films beyond pageant material. I'm such a people person when it comes to like meeting new people and getting to know new people. I really like to sort of step out of my comfort zone and like really make an effort to know everyone. You know, when you're on a set, make sure that you know every person's name. Not only from a perspective of networking, but also that's just being a good crew member, knowing who's on set with you, who's responsible for what, who the actors are. You know, you get to know people and it becomes sort of a family, even in situations where you're making films like pageant material where we were only on set for 10 days. But it's been such a joy for me to look at the crew members who now have lifelong friends. I see them posting Instagram stories together. I see them posting photos together on Facebook. And it's like, yeah, the family that I helped cultivate in creating this film wasn't just a form of networking. You know, they made friends, they made connections, and those will stay with you throughout your career. So Problematic has produced a number of web series, including one called In Human Resources, we have one called Bro Time, and then our biggest one to date is called We're Pretty Terrible. We're Pretty Terrible we actually did a crowdfunding campaign for. We raised all the funds and we made it over like 4-month time span where we would just dedicate full weekends to shooting multiple episodes at a time. There's 8 episodes, 7 total, 8 total. I should know the answer to that question. It's my own web series. But you can watch them all on YouTube. They're also available on Amazon Prime. Bro Time is an interesting series because I wanted to develop something that had a very small cast that we could do in a very short amount of time. So my writing partner and I, Alex Baxter, we wrote something around 2 guys, and we actually filmed all 6 episodes in 9 hours. We just went in and we knocked it out. Simple setups, simple crew, in and out, on with life. And then we released them over a 6-week time span every Monday.
My only complaint with this movie is Mandy Moore as a believable villain.
Sorry?
Yeah, dude. Just don't believe it.
Mandy Moore? Pop icon? Star of A Walk to Remember? Golden Globe nominated supporting actress of This Is Us? You really want to do this, bro?
Pre-production for that was pretty intense. You know, we sat down and we storyboarded everything out. We specifically wrote the scripts even to lend themselves to this sort of shooting style. We wrote very, very simple things, very, very simple dialogue, very simple setups that we would be able to get in and get out of shooting so that we could move quickly through our day. I think when it comes to choosing very streaming distribution for whatever projects that you're creating, my personal feeling is that you just kind of release it wherever's going to get the most eyes on it. So it's like, you know, I'm going to release it on Amazon Prime, I'm going to release it on YouTube, I'm going to release it on Facebook. Because the way you look at how people use the internet and how they use social media, you're not going to get the same eyes in all 3 places. You know, YouTube's going to give you a different audience than Facebook's going to give you, because like what, Facebook's for old people now, you know? So you see that your demographic skews differently from one place to the next. So putting them on all these different places really gives you an opportunity to really maximize viewership, at least in my opinion. I have specific co-writers for specific ideas. So when I look at the more irreverent comedy that we're going to be writing for Problematic, I go to Alexander Baxter. When I'm looking for the more wholehearted comedy, larger storylines, bigger ideas, I sort of go to Madison Hatfield, who is one of the brightest and smartest comedic writers in Atlanta right now. And if anyone at home doesn't know who Madison Hatfield is, they need to know about her, because she helped co-write pageant material. Her and I have since written 2 other features, and you know, Alex and I have also written a feature together. And it's really amazing to be able to find people and really play to their strengths in writing. And that's kind of what I want to do in helping develop these ideas, is finding the people who are going to offer unique strengths. I think comedy is a genre that I'm most comfortable with, but do things that scare you. So the next thing that we're working on is a very heavy drama. I wanted to go in a completely different direction than everything else that we've been doing. So I took the opportunity to write something that's a very, very, very small cast. It's in one location and very dramatic, versus pageant material, which was a large cast, and we shot it in all over Atlanta and, you know, a little bit of OTP, but we were kind of all over the place with it, whereas, you know, with the next one, we just want to be in one place and see how it plays out. So pageant material is dramatic, but here's an interesting thing about that. We wrote a comedy, and there's the saying that you write one film, you shoot one film, and you edit another. We wrote a comedy. We shot a drama. It has its moments of comedy, and it's, you know, it's sprinkled throughout, but it actually makes me really happy to see that it tugs on the heartstrings of so many people. Like, it really makes me happy to see that we went in with one intention and to know how that can change throughout the production process. There was a moment where I was working with our composer, Evan Hodges, on one very specific scene in the film where they're inside of a bathroom. Rodney, who's our main character, is being forced to clean a very dirty toilet by his evil stepfather, Vern, played by Jason McDonald. And we were trying to score that moment and find a way to make it work, because in my head I was like, this is a comedic moment. This moment is funny, the fact that it's happening. And as I continued to watch it with a comedic score, I realized this isn't funny. This is grotesque, this is awful. The fact that he has to clean this, you know, poop-stained toilet is just really, really terrible. And when we tried it with sort of dramatic scoring, I realized, oh, I've had this wrong this whole time. This is a drama, and it needs to be treated as such. I was born in Louisiana originally, and my hometown where all my family lives is this very, very small town called Manny, Louisiana. It's right outside of Natchitoches, which is where they filmed Steel Magnolias. And I wanted to tell a story about that. I wanted to tell a story about a small town, a town of, you know, maybe what, 2,000 people, and a queer kid who not only is unapologetically queer, but also identifies as queer in a way that you don't see in small towns. And you don't see stories a lot of times about kids who are just unabashedly themselves, but are also like, not only that, but I want to be a drag queen. And so as I started to develop that idea, I sat down with my co-writer Madison, who was playing my wife in the film we were shooting at the time. And we started bouncing ideas off of each other. And the first thing we wrote was a line in the opening scene where he tells his best friend Monique, Rodney, the main character, says, I want my hair all big like my mama.
Monique, this is crazy. There's no way that you can make me look like my mama. How are we ever gonna achieve that look?
I'm doing my best, but your motor mouth is less helpful than pillows at a knife fight. Now hush.
And they look at a photo and he's like, small enough to be professional, but big enough to know I'm from the South. And from there, we just sort of developed everything around it. And we wrote a short film. Pageant material was originally 25 pages, and it was gonna be a short, and it was gonna live and die as a short. And then we started developing it more and really started taking a look at the ideas that we had, and we said, this should be a feature. It feels like a really strong, lean short, but there's so much room for more story. There's so much room to explore. So let's do that. And we ended up, you know, fleshing it out some more and turning it into the feature it is now. And I think final runtime on it's like 73 minutes. It was set in Alabama because my husband is from Alabama. He's from a very, very small town similar to mine. He's from Caddo, Alabama. And that's, his parents live, you know, in a small house in a town of like, I want to say like 750 people. It's like nobody there. And being in that sort of situation on Christmases, and, you know, we go every year for his birthday on the 4th of July, it was fresh in my mind. And I was like, I want the film to finale in Atlanta. Atlanta in the South is sort of a mecca for specifically queer individuals who are growing up in these small towns outside. They look at Atlanta as this escape. Like, it'll never be New York, it'll never be LA. But for those of us who are growing up, you know, in places where we're kind of one of a kind, we look at Atlanta as a place where we can find others like us because it's just within arm's reach. So I wanted to put it in a place that wasn't far enough away from him that he'd still be able to get there for the finale. So I was like, if I put him anywhere in Alabama, he'll be able to get to Atlanta, no problem. I think the most personal thing about the film is Rodney's connection to his mother. Rodney's incredibly connected to his mom. I grew up, I'm not gonna cry in this interview. I'm gonna try very hard not to, but I can feel it. I can feel it bubbling up right here. Rodney's connection to his mother is very, very important throughout the film. And I grew up an only child in a single parent household in the Deep South. And I love my mom in a lot of ways. I looked at my mom sometimes more like my sister growing up as we fought so much, but I really wanted to highlight that sort of special relationship and how special she was to me and how special Rodney's mom is to her. Granted, we're telling the story of Cinderella, so someone has to die, and it had to be the mom, and I thought that, you know, that was the way to really like hone in on how special. And my favorite moment of the film is the flashback scene where you get to see Rodney's mom interact with him as a child, and it's just, oh, it's so special, it's so personal.
Am I gonna be as pretty as you when I grow up?
Baby, you're just as pretty now. Prettier if you ask me.
Vern told me you're the prettiest lady in the whole world.
I think that people bully what they don't understand. And Rodney's stepbrothers and stepfather, I think, are put off by the fact that Rodney is gay in some ways because it's something that they don't understand, and that's something that you find in the South. I also think that in terms of general motivation, we found that in writing the script, it makes sense that Rodney's stepfather and stepbrothers likely see a lot of Rodney's mother in him. And they were around before she passed. And so it's probably incredibly hurtful for all of them to see him in a manner that reminds them of someone they loved. You know, and that was a huge point of motivating the character for one of our actors, Tyler Buckingham. He plays Junior in the film. He and I talked for a long time about, you know, what Junior's motivation was. And I was like, I think that you see Rodney from a perspective that Rodney's gonna escape the small town, which you never could, which we do touch on in one scene where Rodney throws it back in his face. And you see a lot of, you know, you see a lot of Anna in him, and Matt.
It's actually kind of weird because Boone doesn't seem to choke up in the last minute like you do. I kind of think the Auburn University football team would agree with me there. Don't you think?
That probably upsets you, as it would Vern, who, if you'll note, still wears his wedding ring throughout the film. It's small things like that we really wanted to hone in on. There's a scene in the film with Rodney and his guidance counselor, Miss Jackie, played by the incomparable Catherine Dyer from Stranger Things, where he has this interaction with her and she tells him, you know, maybe this wouldn't happen so much if you didn't make yourself such a target. The idea that maybe this wouldn't occur to you, maybe you wouldn't be bullied, maybe you wouldn't go through such hell if you chose to be different, if you chose to be another way, if you went out of your way to accommodate everyone else.
Maybe this wouldn't happen so much if you didn't make yourself such a target. This is your opportunity to change. Now, what does the cartoon me say?
Why use a boat if you can build a bridge?
Build a bridge.
That makes no sense at all, Miss Jackie.
Well, you're talking crazy now, but I know you're mostly fragile.
Because I was assaulted.
Because of your condition.
That's something that you hear a lot, and it's something that queer kids hear a lot. You know, change who you are. Who you are is not acceptable, especially here in the Deep South. And when we originally wrote Miss Jackie, she was a school nurse, and she helped Rodney on his way. And she was very, very helpful and very loving and very accepting. And then we said, no, she's uneducated. She's stupid. She doesn't understand, you know, that the kids who are queer are born this way. This is who they are. And we should accept that, we should support that, and we should help them in whatever way possible without victimizing them for simply being themselves. So the one thing that we really wanted to do with the film is sort of paint the South in a more tolerant light. The South isn't always the most tolerant place, but I do find that, at least in my experience, I've never really had a lot of trouble. You know, I was very accepted growing up by all of my family members. I never ran into trouble throughout my life, you know, just being accepted for who I was. And I wanted to show the South in a way that complemented that. So outside of, you know, Miss Jackie's stupidity or, you know, the bullying he experiences with his stepbrothers or stepfather, Rodney doesn't find a lot of hate from the people that he encounters. You know, he is sort of helped along by, you know, the town librarian Gus, and then after a very traumatic experience that he has about halfway through the film, he gets to meet this wonderful diner waitress named Tracy, played by the incredible Megan Poole, who is from Pearl, Mississippi. So when you see the film and you hear her accent, that is all real. That is her real voice, and it is incredible. But you know, she accepts him for who he is, and kind of gives him advice to accept himself. And then he has a really brilliant moment with, oh my God, I'm gonna cry. He has a really brilliant moment with Tracy's line cook, Dale. Dale takes him to Atlanta, his sort of pumpkin, you know, that turns into a chariot. And he shares this moment about George Clooney's Batman, which I'm not gonna spoil because it is my favorite favorite monologue in the film. And it turns me into a puddle. It makes me weep every time. And Alexander Baxter as Dale just is amazing. And there's such honesty and there's such rawness in what Dale says to Rodney, and in the way that he shows his acceptance of him that you don't see from a lot of the strong masculine men that you experience in the South. And making sure to put Dale, you know, in the production design side of things, putting Dale in this big truck when he's such a small individual, and you know, giving him that really crazy mustache, and making him sort of this picturesque version of what masculinity in the South looks like, and to give him that raw, vulnerable moment is just, oh, chef's kiss. Like, it's so good.
I'd like to shake your hand and wish you good luck.
Thanks, Dale.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, Rodney. Oh, hey, don't go telling Trace about George Clooney's Batman. That's just, I don't want to get her to feeling self-conscious.
No.
It's just an impossible ideal for anybody to live up to, you know?
So the finale scene was actually the hardest thing for us to film. We shot the film over a 10-day time span in May and June of last year, and the finale was the final day of shooting. It's an incredibly emotional scene. You know, the song that we utilized with, you know, with the rights from Kesha. She gave us a song to use in the finale scene. She was incredibly sweet about it. Well, her label was, but I feel like that she knows about it. And well, at least I'm gonna tell myself she does, because I really wanna know that Kesha knows who I am. But, you know, we got onto set and it was the end. And to film the end at the end it was beautiful. And as a director, trying to approach that and get this really raw emotional performance from Hart Morse as Rodney was actually really easy. You know, he was already there. He was already emotional. And then during playback, you know, we had our camera on our dolly, and we're dollying across and looking up at him, and he's lip syncing for all these people, and I'm just yelling at him over playback of this song, telling him, you know, I want you to look at this moment like the last 10 days. You fought and you struggled to be here, and now you are. And it's done, you know. You worked so hard to make it to this point and to have this opportunity, and it's, you know, it's my first feature, it's his first feature. A lot of people, it was one of the first big projects that they had the opportunity to work on, and we all just cried. I mean, I'm crying now. We all just were such a bundle of emotion, and it's something I'll never forget it. To have our world premiere at the Atlanta Film Festival and to boast an all Atlanta cast and crew is phenomenal. And to shoot it here and to see that people were so accommodating of us, you know, working on a small budget, working in, you know, in the time frame that we had was really amazing. And it's like so nice to see that this town is not jaded by Marvel yet, and they're just so accepting of us and like helping us out as indie filmmakers. I think the biggest advice that I can give to anybody who kind of wants to get into filmmaking is to just kind of go out and do it. And I know that is that's simple, and it's probably much harder than it sounds, but you know, you have a camera on your phone. You have the ability to do whatever it is you want to do as a filmmaker. people make, people were making small films in Vine format for so long, and those are just 7 seconds, and they were doing it on their phone. So, you have the capability to do anything that you want to do if you just go out and do it. The Duplass brothers said there is no reason to not be making films with your friends on the weekends for no money. And the first films that they made that got into Sundance, if you get a chance to go watch them, they're rough, and they're very, very rough around the edges, and they showed at Sundance. And I think Martin Duplass said that one of the films is the worst audio that Sundance had ever put in front of an audience, and it got them the opportunities that they have today. So, I started out just kind of getting together and making things with a crew of 2 people, and we put it out and hoped that people liked it, and people did, and it pushed me forward. And now I'm here today premiering my first feature film at one of the biggest film festivals in the nation, and I couldn't be more proud. I hope that the takeaway from Pageant Material is that people can look at Rodney and see that what makes him individual or unique is just the same as what makes him like everyone else. I want people to understand that queer narratives are not uniquely queer. We can relate to them. The stories that we tell as queer individuals, are just as special and just as important as stories that you see from non-queer individuals. And I hope that people who don't identify as queer can identify with these characters, can identify with Rodney, and identify with the simple idea that we all have dreams, and we all have wants, and we all struggle to get there, and that makes us the same. I am a machine, and oh man, I need to get oiled, because I'm gonna run out soon. I just kind of full steam chug ahead, but I have been trying to take time for myself and understand that rest is important. As a creative, as a creator, whatever that may be for you, as an artist, as an author, as whatever it is, it's important to rest, to let your brain rest, because when you have a chance to really revitalize yourself, that's when you're at your best. That's when you're at your most creative, and that's when you're going to find the best side of yourself for your craft. For me, I watch TV, I read books. I love to watch other people play video games. I don't want to play video games myself because it's incredibly stressful and I'm not good at it. And it makes me very angry, so that defeats the purpose. But I love watching when people are really good at it, because that's like watching a movie. You can follow me on Instagram. That's where I post the most often, at Jonothon Mitchell, Jonothon, all O's. So my nickname is Jono. So again, Jonothon Mitchell on Instagram. You can also follow Problematic Productions. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and we do post there regularly. And if you want to hear more about Pageant Material, we're at Pageant Material Film on all major social media.